courtroom fell into complete silence as my uncle, Daniel Brooks, straightened his expensive tie and delivered his statement with full confidence. "Your Honor, I legally bought all 12 properties from my brother. I have the signed agreements right here." Judge Hamilton raised an eyebrow, glancing from the stack of documents Daniel's attorney handed over to my calm, steady gaze. "Ms. Brown, how do you respond to your uncle's statement?" I opened my laptop without flinching, keeping my eyes locked on Daniel as I connected it to the courtroom screen. "Your Honor, I'd like to show a video that was recorded at Willow Creek Nursing Home 3 weeks ago. The timestamp is verified and authenticated." At that moment, Daniel's lawyer jumped up, his chair screeching loudly as he stood. "Objection. This video wasn't included in the discovery materials." I gave a slight, knowing smile. It actually was. Page 47 of our evidence file clearly lists a recorded statement from Robert Ellis, dated February 20th, 2023. "And your office confirmed receipt." The judge nodded once. "Objection overruled. Go ahead, Ms. Brown." I hit play and kept my eyes on Daniel. I watched as his confident expression slowly crumbled into disbelief, then fear. On the screen, my father appeared, clearly tired, but mentally sharp, as he calmly and clearly dismantled the false narrative Daniel had built to try and take over everything our family had worked for. But before we got to this point, let me tell you how it all started. My name is Rachel Brown, I'm 34, and I'm a corporate lawyer who deals with real estate transactions. My dad, Robert Ellis, built a successful real estate business from the ground up after moving to the U.S. back in the early 1980s. Over decades of hard work, he acquired a portfolio of 12 commercial properties spread across the city. His pride and joy was Ellis Square, a downtown shopping center. But each of those properties had its own story. There was the apartment complex he renovated for immigrant families, the office building where he gave minority-owned businesses discounted leases, and the warehouse he transformed into affordable studio space for artists. His younger brother, Daniel, took a completely different path. While my dad worked with honesty and grit, Daniel chased one get-rich-quick idea after another. He was always looking for shortcuts, for angles to play. "Your uncle just needs more time to figure things out," Dad would say anytime Daniel came asking for money. And he always helped him, covered his debts, bailed him out, always believing that someday Daniel would change. Then, 3 years ago, we got hit with the worst news. Dad was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. It was heartbreaking. Watching this brilliant, detail-oriented man suddenly forget how to handle simple tasks, it was a slow, painful unraveling. My mom, Linda, became his main caregiver. But as his condition declined, we made the difficult decision to move him into specialized care at Willow Creek. And that's when Daniel started showing up more often. Always while I was at work. He'd visit Dad and bring papers for him to sign, claiming they were just routine business matters they'd already discussed. The nursing home staff later told me they didn't feel right about it. But every time they questioned it, Daniel insisted it was all family business and that he was handling Dad's affairs with full authority. The first red flag for me came when I was reviewing one of Dad's quarterly property reports. A few lease payments were suddenly being redirected to new accounts. I dug deeper, and what I found made my stomach drop. There were documents claiming Daniel had bought all 12 of the properties, for a price that didn't even come close to their real value. And all the paperwork was dated during times when Dad's memory was at its absolute worst. Daniel had exploited his own brother's illness to steal millions in real estate. "There's no way Dad sold Ellis Square," I told my mom. "He always said he wanted to leave these properties to help the community. We have to fight this." But Daniel had covered his tracks well. He had documents, supposed witnesses, and a rehearsed story about how Dad just wanted to simplify things before his condition worsened. What he didn't know was that I had been documenting everything, every visit that raised suspicion, every sketchy form, every odd financial change. More importantly, I'd been quietly documenting every moment of clarity my dad had while in care. Willow Creek had an excellent memory care program. They were trained to help residents stay engaged and encourage them to record their lucid thoughts. The staff supported me in capturing clear video statements from Dad, where he talked about the properties and what he thought of Daniel. "I would never sell the plaza," Dad said plainly in one of the recordings. "That's for Rachel to manage so the community keeps benefiting. Daniel knows that. He's just trying to take everything I worked for." We filed a lawsuit to reverse the transfers, citing fraud and the manipulation of a vulnerable adult. Daniel hit back with a countersuit, claiming the sales were legitimate and asking the court to uphold the contracts. That's what brought us to this moment in court. Watching Daniel's carefully staged con fall apart as my father's testimony played across a massive screen, I end the video. Dad went through each property, calmly explaining what it meant to him and what plans he'd made for it. He directly addressed Daniel's claims, pointing out factual errors and contradictions that made it clear these so-called sales never happened the way Daniel claimed. On screen, my father said, "That warehouse? Daniel says I sold it last July. I was hospitalized with pneumonia the entire month. You can pull the hospital records. I didn't sign anything. I could barely hold a pen." The judge leaned in, clearly paying close attention now. Daniel's lawyer had stopped objecting completely and was hunched over, whispering rapidly in his client's ear. Then came the plaza. "The contract says I signed it on my wife's birthday," Dad said. "But we were all at her dinner that night. Daniel wasn't even there. He was in Atlantic City that weekend. His credit card charges will prove it." One by one, Dad tore through every lie. He remembered dates, events, conversations, even little details like who was in the room and what they were wearing. All of it proved Daniel's paperwork couldn't possibly be real. And more than that, the video showed just how clear-headed Dad was when talking about these things. "My brother thinks that just because I'm sick, I don't remember," he said, his voice breaking. "But I know exactly what he's doing. He's robbing his own family." When the video ended, you could have heard a pin drop. The only sound was Daniel's nervous, heavy breathing. His attorney slowly stood. "Your Honor, my client would like to request a short recess to confer." "To confer about what?" The judge interrupted sharply. "How to explain the multiple counts of fraud we just saw? The forgery of documents? The manipulation of someone in cognitive decline?" He turned and looked Daniel straight in the eyes. "Mr. Brooks, I've seen my share of ugly family lawsuits. But this? This is on another level. You exploited your own brother's illness in an attempt to steal everything he built." Daniel tried one last desperate move. "Your Honor," he said, "those videos could have been doctored. My brother's illness means he gets confused easily." I jumped in before the judge could respond. "The videos are verified by the staff at Willow Creek. We have signed statements from multiple employees confirming Dad's mental clarity during those recordings. We also have security footage of you pressuring him to sign things while he was under heavy medication." Daniel's lawyer began quietly gathering his papers. "Your Honor, in light of this evidence, my client would like to withdraw his countersuit and explore settlement options." But Judge Hamilton shook his head. "We're long past settlements," he said coldly. "This case is being referred to the district attorney for a full criminal investigation." He stared Daniel down one last time. "Mr. Brooks, you'd better get yourself a criminal defense attorney." I watched Daniel's face crumble as it finally hit him. What he thought he could get away with had just blown up in his face. He thought Dad's illness meant there would be no resistance. He didn't count on Dad's moments of sharp clarity. And he definitely didn't count on me. The judge's ruling was decisive. Every one of the property transfers Daniel made was reversed. He was ordered to return all rental income he'd collected, plus penalties and our legal costs. And the evidence? Sent directly to prosecutors to pursue charges for elder abuse and fraud. As we walked out of that courtroom, my mom squeezed my hand tightly and smiled through tears. "Your father would be so proud of you," she said softly. "You protected everything he's spent his life building." The outcome of the court case rippled through our extended family like an earthquake. Daniel's reputation was destroyed. The business world that once welcomed him turned its back after learning he had tried to rob his own brother while he was sick. Criminal charges followed, ending in a plea deal that forced him to pay full restitution and permanently barred him from participating in any real estate business. He eventually moved out of state, but not before making one last pathetic attempt at manipulation. We ran into each other at a distant cousin's funeral. He pulled me aside, eyes burning. "You've ruined me," he said through gritted teeth. "My own niece. You destroyed my life." I didn't flinch. "No, Uncle Daniel," I replied. "You ruined yourself the moment you tried to rob your sick brother." I just made sure the truth came out. The Brooks Plaza and the rest of our properties continued to serve the community, just like Dad wanted. I took over the day-to-day management and began implementing the vision he had shared with me during his lucid days at Willow Creek. The warehouse artists kept their affordable studio spaces. The immigrant families remained in their homes. The minority-owned businesses in our office building flourished. Dad's illness advanced, as Alzheimer's always does, but there were still moments of light. The nursing home staff would take him on little drives past the plaza, and his face would light up with joy and familiarity. "Rachel's in charge now," he'd say, beaming. "She gets it. It's not just real estate. It's people." That video, the one that exposed Daniel's entire scheme, ended up becoming a case study at our local bar association's ethics seminars. Estate lawyers used it as an example of why documenting client capacity is crucial. Daniel's lawyer didn't escape unscathed either. The state bar sanctioned him after determining he knew the documents were suspicious, but went along with Daniel's story anyway. "A lawyer's duty is to the truth," the ethics panel wrote in their decision, not to helping family members commit fraud against vulnerable relatives. 2 years after the trial, I came across something that made my blood run cold. While reviewing historical property files, I noticed Daniel had tried to take out multiple loans using the buildings he falsely claimed to own. Fortunately, the banks had flagged the transactions during due diligence checks. He tried to borrow against properties that never legally belonged to him, my assistant explained, showing me the denial notices and red flags from various financial institutions. The reports had been filed, but scattered across departments that didn't coordinate. That discovery led us to introduce a new company-wide policy, mandatory audits of all property records and loan applications, to ensure no one could ever attempt something like Daniel's scheme again. The criminal charges ended in a formal plea agreement. Daniel admitted guilt, agreed to repay every cent, and accepted a permanent ban from working in property transactions. The judge, recognizing the moral weight of exploiting a vulnerable sibling, added one more sentence: mandatory community service at a memory care facility. "Maybe working with dementia patients will teach you empathy," the judge said. Though frankly, I'm not holding my breath. Mom moved into a little cottage on the Brooks Plaza property. She kept Dad's legacy alive by organizing community events and launching support programs. One of her most impactful contributions was a peer-led group for families affected by early-onset Alzheimer's. She shared our story to help others recognize the warning signs and protect their loved ones. The nursing home where Dad lived updated their policies too. Now, no financial or legal documents can be signed without third-party verification. They use our family's case to train staff on preventing elder exploitation. Dad's moments of clarity became fewer, but his connection to what he built never faded. Sometimes he'd sit by the window and describe buildings only he could see, his voice full of pride, his mind walking through the legacy he left behind. "Each one has a purpose," Dad would often say. "Each one helped someone." Daniel made one last, weak attempt at redemption. His new attorney delivered a letter offering amends in exchange for dropping the remaining criminal charges. Mom read it and sighed. "Your uncle still doesn't understand," she said. "This was never about money. It was about trust. About family." We donated the video evidence to an elder abuse prevention organization, which used it to develop training programs for banks and healthcare workers. Dad's story began protecting other seniors who might otherwise fall victim to similar schemes. Brooks Plaza flourished under the new policies I had implemented, policies rooted in Dad's original ideals. We expanded community services, added affordable housing, and launched a small business incubator to support immigrant entrepreneurs. This is what these properties were meant for, I explained in an interview with a local business journal. Not as trophies to be stolen, but as tools to build community. Ironically, Daniel's betrayal had a silver lining. It pulled the rest of our family closer together. Those who had once stood by passively now saw the importance of safeguarding vulnerable loved ones. We began hosting regular family meetings, with open discussions about property management and our collective goals. A family council was formed, ensuring all major decisions stayed aligned with Dad's vision. The legal community took notice too. I was invited to speak at conferences about elder abuse, estate fraud, and legal safeguards. That courtroom video became a widely used teaching tool for attorneys and social workers learning how to protect their elderly clients. And Dad's legacy didn't end with the buildings. We founded the Brooks Family Foundation, which offered scholarships for immigrant youth and funded grassroots community projects. The artist collectives in the warehouse space created a powerful art installation about memory and family in Dad's honor. It toured galleries across the country, raising awareness about elder abuse and the importance of affordable creative spaces. A year after the trial, my cousin Emily, Daniel's daughter, reached out. Her voice shook as she told me what she'd discovered. "I found his notebooks," she said. They contained a shocking amount of detail, failed attempts to scam other relatives, outlines of future plans to defraud friends and business contacts. "He was going to take from anyone he could," she said. "You stopped him in time." Her documents were added to the case record, prompting additional charges and a longer ban on Daniel's financial activity. As for Dad, his condition continued to decline, but the staff at Willow Creek developed a therapeutic visitation program based on him. They discovered that returning to familiar properties often sparked moments of awareness. What started as a way to honor his history became a model for helping other memory care residents reconnect with their past accomplishments. I kept the courtroom video in my office, not to relive the moment of victory, but to remember the moment of truth. Dad's steady voice, naming each building, recalling its purpose, defending what he had built. That mattered more than the judge's reactions or Daniel's downfall. 5 years after the trial, we hosted a celebration at Brooks Plaza. Tenants, community leaders, artists, and neighbors gathered to honor the man who made it all possible. "Mr. Brooks gave us a chance when no one else would," said Mrs. Rivera, who opened her first restaurant in the plaza more than 2 decades ago. "Now my kids are going to college." That dream started here. Daniel never attended another family event. Whether it was guilt, shame, or pride, he vanished from our lives, but the damage he tried to cause ended up forging something stronger. Resilient. Focused. We protected our family's legacy, not just through courtrooms and contracts, but through a renewed sense of shared responsibility. I created legal structures to ensure that future generations would carry on Dad's work, shielded from manipulation and fraud. And Dad's video, that once painful piece of evidence, became a treasured part of our family's story. It didn't just expose deception. It revealed the strength of a man fighting against the erosion of his mind to preserve something greater than himself. That courtroom laughter faded. But Dad's voice, steady and clear, still echoes in the lives of people thriving in the homes, offices, and studios he created. His legacy isn't just in brick and stone. It's in the belief that property should serve people, not power. And that's something no forged signature could ever take away.